Emma Parker always felt like she was living in the background of her own life. Every morning, she followed the same routine: wake up, make coffee, get dressed, and head to the gym. Her apartment was quiet, save for the hum of her old refrigerator and the occasional car passing by outside. Sometimes she would pause and watch the sunlight hit the walls, wishing for something more, though she wasn't exactly sure what. It wasn't that Emma was unhappy. She loved her job at the local library, adored the smell of old books, and had a small circle of friends she cared about. But lately, she felt like something was missing. Her days had become a series of repetitive motions, and at night, when the city's lights flickered beyond her window, she felt the ache of quiet loneliness. Not the kind of loneliness that demanded pity, but a soft, persistent longing for connections, someone who could see her, understand her, and maybe, in some way, inspire her to feel alive again. That afternoon, Emma found herself at the gym, the place she had come to rely on as her sanctuary. The mirrors reflected her image back to her, a young woman with chestnut hair tied into a neat ponytail. Wearing a gray hoodie and black leggings, she had always been aware of her quiet presence, the way she could go unnoticed in a room full of people. Some days she liked it that way. Other days it made her heart ache a little more. As she adjusted the treadmill settings and started her warm-up, Emma noticed her trainer, Ryan, walking toward her. Ryan was the kind of person who seemed to carry energy wherever he went. His presence was calm but magnetic, like a gentle force that made the world around him feel more alive. Emma had worked with him for several months now, but their interactions had always stayed professional, polite smiles, occasional advice, and words of encouragement when she struggled. Today, however, there was something different about the way he approached her. His usual brisk pace was replaced with a slower, more deliberate walk, and his eyes held a warmth she hadn't noticed before. "Hey, Emma," he said, leaning slightly against the treadmill's railing. His voice was steady, friendly, and carried an undercurrent of curiosity. "I was thinking, you're ready for a new challenge." Emma slowed the treadmill and glanced up, trying to hide the flutter of excitement in her chest. "A new challenge," she repeated, her voice tentative. Ryan nodded, his gaze holding hers. "Yeah, something a little different from the usual routine. I think it could be fun, and I think you might surprise yourself." Emma felt a mixture of nerves and intrigue. She had always been cautious about stepping outside her comfort zone. She liked the safety of the gym, the familiar rhythm of machines and routines. But something about Ryan's words made her heart beat a little faster. The thought of trying something new, something that might push her limits, was frightening, yet undeniably enticing. What kind of challenge?" she asked, trying to keep her tone casual while internally debating whether she should agree. Ryan's smile was gentle, almost conspiratorial. "I can't tell you everything just yet. You'll have to come with me and see. But I promise it'll be worth it." Emma hesitated, chewing on the idea. Her mind was filled with questions. Could she really do this? Would she fail? And yet, there was a tiny spark of hope in her chest, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something that could change everything. After a moment of silence, she found herself nodding. "Okay," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'll do it." Ryan's smile widened, and for a brief moment, the gym seemed to brighten around her. "Great," he said. "We'll start this weekend. I think you're going to love it." As he walked away, Emma returned to her treadmill, but her mind was no longer on the routine she was performing. Instead, it wandered to possibilities. The laughter they might share, the new experiences that awaited, and the subtle, thrilling sense of stepping into a world she hadn't known existed. She ran a little faster, letting the treadmill carry her forward, imagining herself hiking up trails she had only ever seen in pictures, exploring places she had only dreamed of visiting. There was a flutter of anticipation she hadn't felt in years, a lightness in her chest that made her feel, for the first time in a long while, truly awake. By the time her workout ended, Emma knew one thing for certain: this was no ordinary challenge. This was the beginning of a story she hadn't written yet. A story where every step would carry the potential for discovery, growth, and perhaps Something even deeper as she left the gym that evening. The cool breeze against her skin felt like a promise that life, even in its quietest moments, could surprise her. That hope could appear when she least expected it. And that maybe, just maybe, the world had someone waiting to walk beside her. Saturday morning arrived with soft sunlight spilling through the clouds, painting the quiet streets in warm gold. Emma woke early, her stomach fluttering with anticipation and nerves. Today was the day of the weekend hiking challenge Ryan had mentioned. And even though she had agreed without fully understanding what it entailed, she felt a strange thrill at the thought of stepping into something new as she sipped her coffee. She found herself thinking back on the past few months she had spent with Ryan at the gym. Their interactions had always been simple and professional at first, yet correcting her posture, offering encouragement, and giving tips on breathing and endurance. Emma had appreciated his guidance, but over time she realized that his presence had become more than that. It had become comforting. She remembered the day she had first felt it. It was a quiet Wednesday morning, and the gym was almost empty. Emma had been struggling with a particularly difficult set of squats, her muscles trembling with fatigue. Ryan had noticed immediately. "Take a deep breath, Emma," he had said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder knot in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that reassured her. "You're doing great. You've got this." She had looked up at him then, and for a fleeting moment, she had seen something behind his usual calm demeanor, quiet understanding, as if he truly recognized her effort and struggles. That small gesture, that one sentence, had left a warmth in her chest she hadn't expected. Emma shook her head slightly, smiling to herself. She hadn't realized it then. But those little moments were the foundation of a bond that had quietly grown between them. There were other memories, too. The afternoons when Ryan would notice her struggling with her water bottle or forgetting her towel, always offering a small laugh and a kind word. Or the time he had stayed after her session to help her stretch, chatting about books and music as if they were old friends catching up. Each memory seemed ordinary on the surface, but together they painted a picture of subtle care, tension, and unspoken connection. And yet something had always kept them apart. Maybe it was Emma's shyness, or Ryan's professional boundaries, or perhaps the quiet fear that acknowledging their feelings could change everything in a way they weren't ready for. They had shared small smiles, fleeting glances, and conversations that lingered in her mind long after the gym was empty. But nothing had crossed the line into anything overtly romantic. Emma sighed softly. She realized that this distance had made her feelings more complicated. She liked Ryan, yes, but she also respected him. She admired him, trusted him, and even relied on him for guidance in the gym. The thought of complicating that with deeper emotions both thrilled and terrified her still. The possibility of something more lingered, like a gentle hum beneath the surface, a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, they could share something extraordinary without losing what they already had. The sound of footsteps outside the apartment pulled her back to the present. Ryan had arrived, as promised, with a backpack slung over his shoulder and the same easy smile that always seemed to make the world feel brighter. "Morning," Key said warmly. "Ready for your first adventure?" Emma smiled, feeling the familiar flutter of excitement in her chest. "I think so," she replied, trying to steady her voice as they walked together to the starting point of the trail. Emma felt a mix of anticipation and nostalgia. The path ahead was unknown, but the presence of Ryan beside her made it feel safe, even thrilling. She couldn't help but reflect on all the little moments that had led to this day, the shared jokes, the casual encouragements, the silent acknowledgments of effort. Each one had quietly built trust, respect, and a subtle closeness that neither of them had yet spoken about at the trailhead. They paused for a moment, taking in the view. The forest stretched out before them, lush and vibrant, with sunlight dancing through the leaves. Emma's heart beat faster, not from the physical challenge ahead, but from the awareness that she was sharing this moment with someone who mattered deeply to her. Ryan turned to her and smiled. "I've got to admit," he said, "I've been looking forward to this all week." Emma's cheeks warmed at his words. She nodded, feeling a quiet connection deepen between them. Me too, she admitted softly, even though I don't know exactly what to expect. He laughed lightly. That's the best part. Sometimes not knowing is exactly what makes it worthwhile. As they stepped onto the trail, Emma thought of all the times they had walked together in the gym. Side by side, yet always slightly apart. Today, those invisible barriers felt thinner. Like they were finally being lifted by shared experience and unspoken understanding. She realized that this hike wasn't just a physical challenge, it was a bridge. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth as Emma and Ryan stepped onto the trail. The sun was still low in the sky, casting golden streaks across the forest floor. Birds chirped in the distance, and the soft crunch of leaves beneath. Their feet was the only sound for a few moments. Emma felt her chest tighten with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Hiking had never been her favorite activity, but today something felt different. There was a quiet electricity in the air, a subtle tension she couldn't quite name. Ryan walked beside her, relaxed and confident, as though the forest itself welcomed him. "Remember," he said, glancing at her with a gentle smile. "There's no rush. Take it at your own pace. The point is to enjoy the experience, not just reach the top." Emma nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. As they walked, her thoughts drifted to the small coincidences that had led her here the day Ryan had suggested the hike, the months of shared moments at the gym, and the quiet pull she had felt every time he looked at her in that same way that seemed to linger just a little too long. They had only ever acknowledged each other in the context of training and casual conversation. But today, something had shifted. Even the simplest gestures, the way Ryan handed her a water bottle, or the way he pointed out a particularly scenic view, carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. Halfway up the trail, they reached a narrow bridge crossing a small stream. Emma hesitated, gripping the wooden rails as water bubbled cheerfully beneath. The bridge was narrow, and she felt a twinge of nervousness. "You okay?" Ryan asked, his voice low and steady. Emma looked up and met his eyes. "Yeah, just a little wobbly." Ryan stepped closer, careful to keep just enough distance to feel supportive without overstepping. "Lean on the railing. You've got this," he said, and in that small, shared moment, Emma felt something awaken inside her, realization that she trusted him more than she had ever trusted anyone. The trust was simple, pure, and entirely unexpected. It was not about words or promises. It was about the quiet assurance that they were in this together as they crossed the bridge. A sudden gust of wind shook the trees. A branch snapped nearby, startling Emma, and she stumbled slightly. Ryan's hand shot out instinctively, steadying her. Their eyes met, and the accidental touch sent a spark through her chest, a spark she had tried to ignore for months. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause. Emma's mind replayed all the past interactions they had, shared the quiet encouragements, the thoughtful gestures, the laughter they had exchanged. And in that instant, it was as if everything aligned, the past, the present, and the possibility of something more. Ryan gave her a reassuring smile. "See? Nothing to worry about." His voice had an edge of warmth, a subtle intimacy that made her heart beat faster. Emma smiled back, feeling a little breathless. She realized that what she had been feeling for so long wasn't just admiration or friendship, was a deep, unspoken connection that neither of them had fully acknowledged until now. As they continued up the trail, the conversation drifted from light chatter to memories of their first meetings. Emma found herself laughing more icily than she had in weeks, letting the sound echo through the trees. Ryan's laughter mixed with hers, creating a harmony that felt familiar and new all at once. At a small clearing, they paused to rest. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, falling across their faces in patches. Ryan reached into his backpack and handed her a granola bar. "Fuel for the climb," he said casually, but the look in his eyes lingered longer than necessary. And Emma felt a warmth bloom inside her. For a few minutes, they sat in companionable silence, listening to the sounds of the forest. The quiet was not empty. It was filled with the rhythm of nature and the unspoken understanding between them. Emma realized that these small moments, these fleeting exchanges, were building a bond stronger than any words could express that. Then, as if fate had decided to play its part, a deer emerged from the trees, pausing just a few feet away. Emma gasped softly, stepping closer to Ryan instinctively. He smiled, clearly delighted by the sudden encounter. And they stood together, mesmerized by the gentle creature. "That's amazing," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "It feels like everything is aligned today." Ryan nodded, his eyes meeting hers with a depth that made her breath catch. "Some days, things just fall into place," he said softly. "And sometimes the universe gives you a little reminder of what really matters." Emma's heart fluttered at the words. She realized that the past months of shared moments, quiet encouragement, and subtle glances had all led to this exact point, the present moment where they could no longer deny the connection between them. As they resumed walking, the forest around them seemed to hum with possibility. Every step forward was not just a step toward the top of the trail, but a step closer to understanding what they meant to each other. The accidental touches, the shared laughter, the quiet support, they were no longer just ordinary moments. They were the threads weaving a story of trust, hope, and deep emotional connection. Emma glanced at Ryan, her chest warm with a mix of nostalgia and anticipation. Perhaps, she thought, the present had finally caught up with the feelings they had both tried to keep quiet, bringing them to a place where anything felt possible. And as the trail stretched ahead, winding higher into the forest, Emma felt a profound truth settle in her heart. Sometimes it takes the perfect combination of past memories and present moments to remind you that what you've been longing for has been right in front of you all. Along the trail grew steeper as Emma and Ryan continued their hike. Each step required careful footing, but the challenge seemed secondary to the emotions swirling silently between them. Neither spoke much. The forest offered a kind of protective privacy, where thoughts could linger and hearts could beat loudly in their own ears without interruption. Emma kept stealing glances at Ryan. He moved with ease along the path, confident and steady, yet there was something in his eyes that made her pause. A softness, a hesitation, something unspoken that mirrored the feelings she had been harboring for weeks. She swallowed hard, unsure whether to break the silence or let it stretch a little longer. Savoring the quiet tension, she remembered all the moments she had almost said something before, only to pull back. The time at the gym when she had felt his encouragement reach deeper than words, or the shared laughs over the smallest things, his wit, his patience, the way he always seemed to notice when she needed support. Every memory made her heart ache with longing, the kind that was quiet yet undeniable. Ryan, for his part, was battling his own restraint. He had spent countless hours observing her, how she concentrated on her workouts, how her eyes lit up when she discovered a new book at the library, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear without realizing it. Each small detail had lodged itself in his mind, creating a quiet attachment that he wasn't sure how to address. He wanted to tell her to bridge the gap that had existed between them, but the fear of overstepping or changing the delicate balance of their friendship kept him silent. "Emma," he finally said, his voice gentle, almost hesitant, "you're doing really well. I'm proud of you." Emma's chest tightened at the words. She wanted to tell him how much his presence had meant to her, how his encouragement had pulled her forward during moments of self-doubt, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she managed a small smile. "Thanks, Ryan," she replied softly. It really helps having someone believe in you." They continued in silence for a while, letting the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves fill the space between them. Every so often, their hands brushed briefly, an accidental touch as they passed each other or shifted position on the trail. Each time a spark of awareness passed between them. Subtle acknowledgement of something neither had yet voiced on. Emma thought about the first day Ryan had suggested the hike. At the time, she had been nervous, unsure if she was ready to step into an experience that was unfamiliar and intimidating. Now, as she climbed higher and the path stretched on, she realized that it wasn't just the physical challenge that mattered. It was the journey they were sharing, an unspoken connection, a quiet companionship that felt more profound than anything she had experienced before. Ryan felt it too. Every time Emma laughed at a small joke or paused to take in the scenery with awe, he felt his heart pull closer to her. There was a longing in him he hadn't allowed himself to name aloud. A gentle ache that stemmed from wanting more, but respecting the space she needed. He wondered if she felt it too. She noticed the way he lingered near her when the path allowed, or the subtle way he adjusted his pace so she could stay beside him at a narrow ledge overlooking a valley. They stopped to catch their breath. The view was breathtaking, layers of green trees stretching endlessly, with sunlight sparkling on the river below. Emma felt a deep swell of emotion rise within her. She wanted to tell Ryan how much she appreciated him, how every little gesture had left a mark on her heart. But fear held her back. The fear of changing what was already beautiful. The fear of vulnerability. The fear of speaking aloud feelings that had been carefully protected for months. She took a deep breath, letting the wind carry some of the tension away. Ryan, too, felt the weight of unspoken words. He wanted to tell her everything, how her courage inspired him, the forest trail had grown narrower, the incline steeper, and the effort heavier. But Emma felt a strange energy propelling her forward. Each step brought not just physical exertion, but a rush of emotion she had tried to keep tucked away. The unspoken connection with Ryan had been a constant presence, comforting yet stirring something she could no longer ignore. Ryan walked beside her, steady and calm, though his eyes occasionally flicked to hers with an intensity that made her heart beat faster. He had been quiet for much of the hike, as if giving her the space to find her own rhythm. But Emma sensed that something was different today. A subtle tension that suggested the quiet moments were approaching a breaking point. The path opened into a small plateau overlooking the valley below. The view was breathtaking. Layers of green rolling hills, a river snaking lazily through the distance, and sunlight catching the edges of clouds in a golden glow. They both paused, catching their breath, letting the scenery sink in. Emma's chest swelled with emotions she could no longer contain. The months of quiet admiration, shared smiles, and stolen glances felt too heavy to remain unspoken. She remembered every small moment, the encouragement at the gym, the jokes shared over dumb mistakes, the way he had always noticed when she was unsure or tired. Each memory pressed against her heart like a gentle insistence. It was time to acknowledge what she felt. "Ryan," she began, her voice trembling slightly, unsure how to continue. He turned to her immediately, concern and attention evident in his expression. "Emma, what is it?" She swallowed hard, trying to steady her thoughts. I can't keep pretending anymore," she admitted, her words spilling out in a quiet rush. "All these months I've felt something I didn't understand at first, but I can't ignore it anymore." Ryan's gaze softened, his eyes searching hers with a mixture of hope and apprehension. He reached out, gently placing a hand near hers, careful not to crowd her space, but close enough to connect. "You're not alone," he said softly. "I've felt it too. I didn't know how to say it without risking everything we've built." Emma's heart leaped at his words, a mixture of relief and joy flooding her chest. She had feared that confessing her feelings might push him away, might ruin the careful closeness they had nurtured. But now, standing on the plateau, she realized that their bond was strong enough to survive honesty. It had already survived months of unspoken longing. "I've wanted to say it so many times," she admitted, her voice shaking with emotion. "But I was afraid of changing things, of losing this." Ryan nodded, his own emotions barely contained. "I know exactly what you mean," he said. "I've worried about that too. But holding it in, it's harder than speaking it aloud." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The wind rustled the leaves, birds called out from the trees, and the distant river sparkled like a promise. In that quiet space, Emma and Ryan felt the weight of months lift, replaced by clarity and the warm glow of shared truth. "I don't want to hide anymore," Emma whispered. "I don't want to pretend that I'm just okay with friendship when it's more than that." Ryan smiled, a mix of relief and tenderness washing over his features. "Neither do I," he said. "I think we've both been waiting for the right moment. Maybe this is it." A comfortable silence settled between them, not awkward, but full of meaning. They both understood that this was a turning point. A moment where what had been quietly simmering finally had the chance to emerge. It wasn't dramatic in a flashy way, was quiet, natural. Inevitable. Emma felt a rush of gratitude for everything that had led them here. The months of small gestures, the subtle glances, the shared laughter, the hikes, the encouragements, and even the hesitations. Each had built a bridge between them, and now that bridge was finally open. Ryan squeezed her hand gently. A silent promise that he was with her not just in the moment, but in every step forward. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we face it together." Tears prickled at the corners of Emma's eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of relief, hope, and joy. "Together," she echoed, smiling through her emotions. They stood there a little longer. Looking sun was beginning its slow descent, casting golden streaks across the forest and painting the valley below in soft amber light. Emma and Ryan had reached the final stretch of the trail, their steps slower now, not from exhaustion, but from a quiet contentment that settled between them. The weight of unspoken words had finally lifted, replaced by a sense of understanding, trust, and shared hope. As they paused to take in the view one last time, Emma felt a swell of gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. It hadn't just been a physical hike, it had been a journey of the heart. Every step, every laugh, every fleeting glance had contributed to something far greater than either of them had anticipated. A connection that was strong, resilient, and tender. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Ryan asked softly, his eyes reflecting the warm light of the setting sun. Emma smiled, her chest light and full. "I can," she said. "And it's more than just the trail we climbed. I feel like everything else in my life makes sense now. Like the path we took together has led me to exactly where I'm supposed to be." Ryan reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. It was a small gesture, simple yet intimate in its quiet significance. "I feel the same," he said. "These past months, I've learned more about myself than I ever expected. And you've taught me how to appreciate the little things, the moments that truly matter." Emma's eyes glistened, not with sadness, but with a profound sense of connection. She realized how much she had longed for someone to see her, not just her actions or achievements, but the quiet, unspoken parts of herself that often went unnoticed. Ryan had seen them, recognized them, and appreciated them. And in that acknowledgement, she had found a kind of love that was patient, understanding, and sincere. For a moment, they stood together in silence, letting the golden light and the gentle sounds of the forest fill the space between them. No words were needed. Their hearts spoke louder than any conversation could. They had faced uncertainty, hesitation, and the quiet fear of vulnerability, and now, standing here, they knew it had all been worth it. Emma finally broke the silence, her voice soft but full of emotion. "Ryan, thank you for everything, for being patient, for believing in me, for just being you." Ryan smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made her heart soar. "You don't have to thank me," he said gently. "It's been a privilege to be part of your journey, and I think this is just the beginning for both of us." The realization settled over Emma like sunlight after a long storm. This was more than a confession, more than shared feelings. It was a promise of trust, partnership, and hope for the future. She could imagine them facing challenges together, celebrating victories, and supporting one another through quiet moments and grand adventures alike. As they began the descent back toward the trailhead, their steps fell into a natural rhythm side by side. The conversation was light, filled with laughter and reflections on their hike. But beneath it all lay a deep, unspoken understanding. Each glance, Each gesture, each shared smile carried the weight of months of connection and the excitement of what lay ahead at the base of the trail. The world seemed different somehow. The city lights in the distance no longer felt distant and cold. They were part of the life that awaited them, a life they could face together. Ryan turned to Emma, his expression serious but kind. "No matter what comes next," he said, "I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Emma felt her heart swell with warmth. "I know," she replied, "and I feel the same." They shared a quiet smile, one that spoke of mutual understanding, trust, and a promise of shared future moments. The world around them seemed to hum softly with possibility. Each detail, the rustling leaves, the distant river, the golden light filling the space with hope and calm joy. As they walked back toward the parking lot, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From shy beginnings and unspoken glances to shared adventures and heartfelt confessions, every step had been meaningful. She realized that love wasn't always about dramatic gestures or perfect timing. It was about quiet understanding, patience, and the courage to be honest with oneself and others. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the sun had dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and lavender. Emma and Ryan paused one last time, standing together and taking in the view. "Ready for the next adventure?" Ryan asked with a gentle smile. Emma laughed softly, her heart light. "Always," she said. Hand in hand, they walked toward the world beyond the trail, carrying with them the lessons of patience, hope, and connection. The journey had changed them, deepened their bond, and opened the door to a future that neither had dared to imagine before. And as the evening sky stretched above them, they knew that this was only the beginning filled with shared laughter, trust, and the quiet, enduring joy of hearts finally aligned. The story of Emma and Ryan ended not with a dramatic flourish, but with a gentle, lasting truth. Love, when nurtured with patience, kindness, and understanding, could transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. And in that quiet, tender realization, they found not just each other, but a hope that would carry them forward, together through every trail life would bring.